Welcome to the Everyday Citizens Tactical Podcast, Episode 35, Teardown Systems. My name is Jeremy, and as always, I will be your host. Today I'm joined by Jeremiah August, the owner of Teardown Systems, and he comes on to discuss the mission of Teardown Systems, the development of products, and their mission to promote community amongst all of us. So, without further delay, let's dive in.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody, and Jeremiah, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I appreciate being on.
Absolutely. So newer company, small business, obviously, based here in America. So if you want, go ahead and kind of tell the Teardown Systems story and kind of give everybody a little introduction to yourself.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. So I'm Jeremiah August. I am the owner of Teardown Systems. We are a nylon manufacturing company here based in Ohio. So everything we make is in-house. We do zero outsourcing, which is pretty rare in our industry. Teardown started as a 3D manufacturing company, kind of on a whim. So we was in my house late at night, actually on Valentine's Day, 3 a.m, had an ADHD moment, and was like, I've been working on these dry-fi kits, ended up starting the company, just launched it through my personal page on Instagram. Sold so well that I was like, oh my goodness, I actually have something here. And basically kept doing that till we raised enough money to get our sewing machines, which at the time, a little history for me is I've been sewing since I was 8. And then at 13, I was sewing raid mods for guys going into Iraq and Afghanistan that I just knew buddies going in. And they were like, hey, can you do this? And so that's kind of like my intro into the tactical nylon world. And then I got heavy into milsim stuff around the same time and started making my own gear just because obviously back in the day, I feel like nylon gear was pretty heavy. Wasn't designed super well, especially a lot of the issued stuff was just either heavy, kind of bulky and stuff like that. And so I've been making up different designs here and there for years now. And it's nearly, 15, 18 years later, and started Teardown as a company, but mainly a vision. Like my vision for the company is that we're a community-based business. I'm making gear to help fund things, but it's mainly to change the community, to make a bigger impact. Mainly, we're a Christian-based company, so our goal and desire is to further God's kingdom in what we do. So we go to a lot of community events. We share the gospel there, but we also use that to grow a better community. That's where my heart and passion has always been. And so it's kind of where I've started to lead the company in terms of doing a lot more free based community events. A lot of things, there's a high barrier to entry. And so doing things where people can learn skills and also meet different companies in the industry that are willing to help, I think is really awesome. And community is just more than all the people we talk with online. So my goal is to hopefully, at least in my local area, and also to encourage it abroad, but in my local area to actually find like-minded people. For a long time there, a lot of us weren't even talking to each other unless it was online. And so you have this perception that there isn't a lot of people like you out there. Especially with how media goes. I'm sure you, Jeremy, have seen how the media goes, right? So yeah, it kind of makes you feel secluded. And Teardown in terms of that is just that. I guess I can go into our motto or meaning of Teardown in that sense. Our motto is train hard and serve others. And so again, that takes into account just about everything. Training hard doesn't only mean with our gear and stuff. It means, training to be a better husband, a better friend, and then serving others. You're serving your family, but your local community as well. And with that, that's the vision we try to project. We even provide products that aren't even tactical gear, but that help encourage people to do more than just the bare minimum, I guess. But yeah, Teardown, really how we came up with that name. It sounds bad, right? You're tearing down systems. A lot of people are like, always burn it down to the ground. But I'm a big studier of history. I never want what the French Revolution had happened, which they quite literally burned everything down. I was told a few years ago that kind of picture life as a wall of bricks, and you tear out. When you go to build a wall of bricks, you don't tear down the entire wall. You just tear out one brick at a time, the bad ones, and leave the good ones in place. So that's where Teardown Systems kind of came from, is this idea of we all have different character traits. We all have different morals and stuff like that. And our goal is to tear out or tear down the bad bricks, the bad systems in our lives, and replace them with good ones, leave the good ones in place, and continue to always get better. So that's kind of, I guess that's Teardown as a whole, and in all the different criterias and messages that we try to get across with it. So yeah, that's about that.
Awesome. Yeah, no, ECT and Teardown Systems definitely has a lot in common in regard to not only trying to, equip our fellow countrymen, but also just that aspect of building community and building, the men and women in general as well. I respect the hell out of what you guys are doing, because I looked into our own in-house nylon development at one point, and I was like, I'm backseating that. That's a big project. It is a skill, to say the least.
Yeah, it's huge if you don't have that firsthand knowledge. Mm-hmm. And obviously with our industry, a lot of companies, due to patents and everything, keep certain, like how you would set a company like that up close to their chest. Mm-hmm. So for me, never being in this industry, it was a whirlwind of a process. I knew how to do this stuff, which makes it nice in terms of like we offer R&D services and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Because I am a sewer and a designer, and a lot of times in this industry you don't get the two in one person. It's kind of a two-person process or two-group process.
Sure.
And that, like, if you don't have that, it makes starting out very hard, because you have to have somebody that obviously understands the machinery and different aspects of sewing, right? Mm-hmm. Pattern making, all that stuff. How to simplify it if it's going to hold up and stuff. And so a lot of times guys, especially with the smaller companies, there's plenty of guys that are into this industry that I've got to connect with and that are super awesome. And a lot of them end up partnering up with guys that either have the like creative design process of like, this is how I'd want the gear. And then they actually have a guy that knows how to sew that can be like, hey, actually we can't do that. It's not physically possible.
Sure.
So that's a interesting aspect of it. And I can only imagine, if it was as hard for me, I can only imagine for other people as well.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot of, that's the one thing a lot of people don't think of when they're like, why doesn't this product exist? Is that there is limitations to what goes into product development, in a sense. Like nylon can only do so much.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's the machinery. Like, it can either be a barrier to entry, it could be a $10,000 sewing machine.
Sure.
Or there's just not a machine out there that can do what you need it to, or it's not accessible in the States. India is a big manufacturing side of things, and they have machines that I've never even seen in the States. That are super impressive.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think one of your guys' bigger, more mainline products is the S&R rig, which is a split rig. And obviously split rigs have kind of started to make a comeback, especially with as much as we've seen from Ukraine. A lot of guys aren't running plate carriers with 3 mags and that's it. Guys are carrying equipment. And obviously split rigs are a big part of that. So, what's kind of the story behind the S&R rig and how did it come to fruition?
That's an awesome question. So the down and dirty, or the like really fast answer to that, is the S&R rig is basically a TAPS rig that was basically cut in half and designed around that. My very first prototype, I pretty much picked a TAPS rig, mainly not because I like the TAPS rig, mainly because it had enough molly real estate and enough room that I was like, if I modify this, it'll get where I want. It started out of a desire for a rig that was easy to access. I remember some of the old Eagle split rigs that I really liked, but they were either zippered or there was like weird differences that I didn't like. And this was probably about a year before the 34A came out, and I was prototyping the S&R rig, and I was like, man, I really like this. And then Spiritus started announcing their 34A. I'm like, man, I'll just get that, And this is before I even had the company. So in that aspect, I was like, well, I don't need to make my own, so I could just buy it. And it came out, and I was still working on it. And I'm like, I just want to carry more. Like, I'm a civilian. I don't know my what my logistics are going to be. So I wanted to be able to carry everything I needed. But the main rule of thumb was it needed a full combat load of either 5.56 or 308.
Sure.
And at that point, still to this day, I don't think there is a rig that actually does that, at least with the 308 end. So that was my criteria, is full 5.56 or 308 without taking any molly space out. So started with the TAPS rig, and then started stowing up my own with my own material. Really liked it. Liked it so much during the testing phase of it, and so many of my buddies and different people in our area that I would run into were like, that's a sweet rig. So once Teardown started, and I was able to get my own sewing machine, I got connected with a guy, and he was able to laser cut, because I was like, if I am going to start coming into the nylon market, I kind of want to make a big wave, but I also want it to be high quality, which at that time, laser cutting was relatively new, but it was definitely everybody was catching on that this is like kind of the way it's going to go. And released the S&R rig, and now it's our flagship product. But the idea is, just a full combat load, plenty of molly. The idea, and what a lot of people I don't think realize about it, is that it's not just a split rig. So it actually, we put loops on there so that it can connect into placards. You can actually separate them, and now it's 2 standalone chest rigs, or 2 standalone placards. And so it just allows you to be able to basically do everything a civilian needs. It's that all around. It can be a placard, it can be a chest rig, it can be a split rig, it can be ran lower like an LBE, and you're never pigeonholed into being told that you need to buy like you need to buy this rig for that, or you need to buy this plate carrier for that, or however, vice versa. That's the goal at Teardown in terms of when we design things, is to provide as much access as possible to the civilian, because we're very civilian oriented more than mill. Which is funny because like our first 10 orders were from mill guys. So
that's how you know you got a good product.
Yeah. And they absolutely beat them to snot, which was awesome. But Yeah, so the SNR rig was really that whole idea of sustainment, reconnaissance, being able to go a long distance with your stuff as a civilian just in case, but being able to downsize as well because you just never know your situation as a civilian. We don't know
Sure.
what we're going to face.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of my mentality about it when designing it and wanting to do it. But yeah, it's relatively simple in its design, but there's not many out there like it. So yeah,
It's definitely creative, and generally speaking, it's a pretty affordable product as far as chest rigs go, especially for, like you said, the purpose of. I mean, you can make two different placards or two different smaller chest rigs out of it. So
yeah, and that was the goal. Is like the original design wasn't to allow that to happen, and then I'm like, okay, all I have to do is add a loop on the other side, and make it placard compatible basically. And if you and a buddy can only afford one thing, you guys can split the cost and he can hand you the other half. Or if you're, at a training thing, there's a new guy and he needs a setup, here you go. Here's like the other half.
Sure.
Kind of that mentality of actually helping. And obviously in a bad scenario, the more people being able to be armed and kitted is a good thing. So say you have that and you end up making a connection, or there's somebody in the community that's not as well armed as you, you can hand this off to them and be like, here, like at least, because like having two people that are actually relatively able to sustain themselves is better than just one guy and then leaving the other guy as cannon fodder, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. And honestly, supporting the small business, especially over the past 4 years, we've seen so many various types of like tactically oriented small businesses all pushing good values and like forming community.
Yeah.
Bringing more of those around, I mean, that is what helps us in the future. And that is a resource, to the people of your community and your region in the future is, having this kind of capability in your area, because logistics is everything. Whether it comes from, your individual kit and you having 3 mags versus 7 mags, water and pyro, or it comes from, hey, our organization or this movement as a whole needs equipment. We are supplying and supporting those small businesses now to then, benefit each other in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just crazy to see how, like, since I got in the industry, I'd probably say like a year after, looking at it, how many small companies are popping up. It's encouraging, and also at the same time, it's there's like a odd trend in a certain sector of like companies popping up just to make things that either copy bigger companies, and then obviously because of the overhead, they can charge less. And it's like a hit and miss. You either get really awesome companies that are innovating because they're smaller, they can innovate faster. And that's super awesome to see in the community. And then you obviously have that other side of it. That's also interesting to see. And that's been popping off lately. Both sides of it in the last years or so, like you said, the last 4 years, but like just within this last year, I'd say I'd probably seen like 20 companies pop up out of nowhere. And it's really interesting to just see it from the industry back end of, what are their goals? Is it just money? Is it that they want to be in this industry for the sake of being in this industry? Is it do they want to further the community? Like, it's so many different goals and desires, and we'll see how it turns out in a few years. I'm very curious.
For sure. And that's one big thing, even for like me here at ECT, that I've never wanted to do was just either to flood the market with repeat products or just copycat people. I mean, I've reached out to a ton of companies like, hey, I would rather just sell your product and promote your product than me try to figure out how to make a copy and just compete with you. And I think that's a big thing is like, companies working together and just, bolstering each other.
Yeah, for sure. There's, and you have to, like, I think the industry's changed from like the early 2000s where it was kind of dog eat dog world. I mean, obviously that still exists, but a lot of younger guys like me that were still in our 20s doing this stuff, a lot of us are playing friendly. A lot of us realize, hey, there's enough demand there that we can all eat the cake kind of thing.
Sure.
To an extent, but it's more, outside of the business end of it, it's more like, hey, like we realize we're all in the same boat in terms of our country kind of going to crap. And we're here for the community in one way or another. We might have different goals within that. Like us, we're heavily more community oriented. We're much more willing to lose out on the major profit to hopefully impact people within our local community and stuff like that. And we just had an event in Pennsylvania because we're pretty close to Pennsylvania. And it was cool to see, anywhere from like 15 different companies all coming together with either free training, check out our gear. We were there showing gear, but we were mainly there to just connect people together. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of just the issues that we face right now, what do you think of our current situation, and what is Jeremiah, maybe not Teardown Systems, what is Jeremiah's guidance and advice for everybody as we kind of navigate these weird waters?
Yeah. So a huge goal of mine is to never fearmonger. Obviously with our current state and predicament in the States, it makes it a little difficult because it seems like every month there's just something that just shows how much worse things are getting. Whether it's on the financial level, whether it's on laws and politics. And then obviously we have our different culture wars going on. For me in general, just because of my faith, I trust in God and what he's doing, even in the midst of all these things. So I have a kind of a peace around it either way. But in terms of just community and family and stuff, yeah, I worry about for the sake of my own family, and knowing that, our communities should be tighter knit, whether or not, you get both like if my neighbors don't like guns, which they do, but like, in that kind of sense, like community is more than just guns. It's more than all this. We've started to set up, where we trade our eggs for my neighbor's mushrooms that they go and forage, and they don't do anything within this industry or anything like that. But it's like, that's a far bigger and better connection than if all my neighbors love to go shoot guns kind of thing.
Sure.
Or if we're all on the same political ideals. Now, obviously, I'm not going to like cherry coat like the Democratic agenda and just all the like social politics and cultural politics that come from all of that. And that whole thing, I don't think is good for the country. It's terrible. If anything, there's a lot of lack of moral values there, that really endanger what America was designed to be. And I just see it keep going in one direction. I think honestly, in a cultural sense, I think we're almost actually, there's a lot of people, obviously since COVID, like waking up, if that makes sense. There's a lot of people that I used to work with before I started Teardown, that their entire idea of what they used to believe kind of switched around, where I had to take a double take. So I think in some senses it's actually good that it's kind of gotten so bad, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, we can't be complacent anymore. But in sense of our leadership and stuff, yeah, it's a pretty bad situation.
I think definitely we're seeing a shift in the world, not necessarily just in the US, but even like Europe,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
of the day of this recording. It's June 10th when we record this. You know, yesterday was the European Union elections for all the different European countries, and Conservative Party candidates, I mean, really, really gained popularity in this election compared to years past. And I think that's just kind of the direction we're heading in, not necessarily because of left versus right, red versus blue, but I think people are at the point now where they are tired of looking the other way about just paying so much in taxes and the endless wars and the destruction of our own, you know, communities and society, to now where it's like, you know, we have to put people back in charge that, you know, at least say that they're going to put an end to this stuff. Now, whether they do or not is a different conversation, but it was very interesting to see the election results of that, because there's a lot of sitting European government members right now that are very upset with the way the election went. You know, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, he dissolved parliament after the election results. Like, so there's definitely tension,
which is crazy.
Which is crazy.
Like that. I'm so glad you brought him up, because that guy is insane.
He's off his rocker.
Yeah.
I mean, just in the past month, we've had the UK dissolve its parliament because the prime minister was unhappy. Now the French president dissolved parliament because they're unhappy. You know, Germany is constantly fear-mongering the populace that, you know, the alt-right nationalists are gaining popularity, when in reality they're just, you know, tired of being broke and, you know, refugees destroying their communities. I mean, it's
the policies. Like, I mean, look here. Our policies are terrible, so then everybody gets tired of those policies. Mm-hmm. And it's the whole pushing of the envelope, you know? Like, before they'd be like, oh, we'll just push it a few millimeters, or an inch. And now it's like, no, we're going to take like a whole 3 feet, before, and they're doing it at a much more rapid pace. And I'm glad you brought up Europe, because like, it's so easy to become like American centric in terms of like what's going on. But to see that it's not just an American issue, it's all the politicians, especially in Europe, they're kind of pulling the facade off, mm-hmm. and they're just kind of doing what they want, even when the people are upset. You know, you got the whole like farmer tractor thing, which is still kind of going on. And it's just crazy, because you look at it and you're like, they're openly protesting, which was not very normal in Europe. And now it's kind of full blown. And then obviously you got different prime ministers just doing really dumb stuff, mm-hmm. In the open. And you can, the tune has changed with the people there. Like, even in some media outlets, you have a lot more independent reporters just absolutely hammering home. They don't care if it goes against some sort of policy or law that was passed, that you can't talk against the government about those kind of things. I just see a lot more people risking it, because they're like, the problem is we just shut up and kind of let them do what they wanted to do, you know?
Sure. It kind of all goes back to the saying of like, everything's fine while there's bread and circuses.
Yeah.
You start taking away people's bread and circuses, and people start to realize what's really going on, and, you know, people become angry. They become fed up. And that goes for both sides in a sense. Like, even if, you know, you could say leftist policy has essentially gotten us where we are today, and the right is complicit in a lot of it, by all means. You know, politics is dumb all around, no matter who we're really referring to. Right. But even the left, you take away their bread and circuses, and what do? They burn down a community. You know, they kill a store owner. You know, they torch a police car. You know, whatever it is. I mean,
right.
Both sides eventually have limits.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because like, I don't even know if the circus part has been really taken away as much. If anything, I feel like because the bread portion, right, our financial state, our actual like how easy is it to get food on the table, mm-hmm. has kind of gone down the hole, right? Most people's food has like doubled in the last couple of years, and so like, you see that hardship. Obviously, taxes and housing just keeps going up, so you see the like bread portion just absolutely dropping like a rock. And I almost feel like I see them trying to push the circus or the entertainment side as hard as possible to try to keep people appeased. And it's just not working.
Yeah.
Which is normally not what I thought would happen, but kind of worked that way, I guess.
Sure. No, I mean, eventually it's like, how much do you really care what insert multi-million-dollar artist or Hollywood actor says or thinks when
or NBA player.
you're picking between rent and your electric bill this month. Like, it's just eventually people don't care about circuses to basically sum that up.
Yeah, or it's not even that they don't care. I'm sure everybody would love to go back to the 2000s and just be entertained and not care as much. But like, when now it's like there's hundreds of different streaming services. Now you can't even watch an NBA game without having a streaming service. A lot of people are like, well, I can't. It's either I feed my kids or I watch this. And a lot of people are like, well, why am I going to pay money? I was happy doing it when I had access money or stability or whatever. But why am I going to pay to watch a multimillionaire either complain or throw a ball around?
For sure.
And it's like, I didn't even know the NBA finals was going on, just because it's like, who cares at this point?
No, I agree. Well, kind of wrapping things back around to Teardown Systems, do you guys have anything coming down the pipe you may want to give people a sneak peek at, or do you guys have any partnerships? What can you tease the people with?
Yeah, so quite a few things. So we're pretty open with our development process, what's coming down the pipe, mainly just to change how marketing is done. A lot of people are tired of the hype, are tired of like stuff getting leaked and then it's like a year before it comes out, and or people's expectations are through the loop. So we try to do it in a more open, honest thing. So for a few months now, people have known that we've been working. We normally try to give people, hey, this is what we're working on. This is kind of our timeline. So our SNR Mini, for guys that are a little bit on the Lucas Bakken thinner side, or if you just don't have like a big rib cage like I do, we're coming out the SNR Mini. So it just takes the bigger, 8 molly per side to 6 molly per side for the SNR, which means the admin pouch is a little smaller on the rear, but we've been rocking it for probably about 2 months now. Design change hasn't really changed at all. So you get everything you would get from the SNR, which is nice, but in a smaller package, which also turns it into like a triple mag placard for a plate carrier, if that's what you're interested in. But all the same features and everything. We just had a lot of guys that were on the skinnier side that were like, hey, like I can't actually run this, but I would love to. So we're releasing that here pretty soon. And we also have our butt pack coming out, which we've been talking about for months, and openly talking about the design. And a lot of guys just wanted something to go with that, but we've had to go to the drawing board a few last minute times to make sure fitment, because there's just so much variety in terms of gear that people run in a butt pack. And when we think of what civilians would be running, we try to really apply what can fit in there. So the butt pack's still coming out. We also have a 34A, Spirit Systems 34A admin pouch that you'll be able to add onto that, because in terms of real estate, the 34A is a little bit limited. So we had a lot of long range guys be like, hey, I'd love to be able to fit some of my range stuff, some of my land nav stuff in there. So we have that coming out pretty soon, which is pretty sweet. That's gone through testing and we've received tons of good feedback. But yeah, it's a constant thing. We have about 60 different products, somewhere in different pipelines, whether prototyping, design, testing. we mainly me, because I'm mainly the person who designs all this stuff. It's just like I said, because I've been sewing for so long, I've already had so many ideas in my mind, and we're willing to be like, hey, this isn't going to be like a flagship product that keeps us in business for years, but it's something that we see a need in the market, and we're always looking to innovate. We literally have a rule that if it's not innovating on a product that exists, we won't make it. We've been asked multiple times to make different products from customers that other companies make, and a lot of times the customer just doesn't like the price point. Sure. But it's one of those things that we're like, hey, we just will not make it just for the sake of making it cheaper. Just because our overhead is cheaper doesn't mean we're gonna knife another company in the back. Because they have to, have a little bit higher pricing. And so for us, it's one of those things, unless we can innovate. We just released 3 products about a week and a half ago, like our Castle case, which is a lock picking case, which is kind of in a different area of our industry, right? And released that. It's been being accepted really well, way better than we thought. Some big lock picking guys have gotten their hands on it, which is super exciting. Just because we went to a cloaked entry course down in the Carolinas, and that was super awesome. But it made me realize a lot of the cases nowadays are made for hobbyists that are sitting on their table or stuff like that.
Sure.
And not made for actual in-field use. And so that was kind of our approach, is like to that is like, what does it actually look like having to use this outdoors in the dark where you can't see your picks because there's a light.
Yeah.
So we released that. We released our iteration on an NVG lanyard. But yeah, got quite a few products coming down the pipe. That we can't necessarily talk about currently. But we normally try to give everybody an expectation of like, what are the next 3 products, just so that they can have their mind on it and be like, hey, is this actually going to suit what I need? And if it doesn't, we're not like a high pressure company in terms of like, you need this product. It's like, if it does not work for you, if it doesn't work in your area or your SOPs or whatever it is, it's like, don't buy it. Like
sure.
We're here to make stuff that people find a need for and are going to use. I'm one of those guys that if I can't use it, I don't want it. And that doesn't necessarily make me a minimalist, but it's just like, why have it just to look cool kind of thing? Yeah. So.
No, that makes sense. Well, awesome. It sounds like you guys got a lot coming down the pipe. And I love your guys' social media content, even for a small business. You guys got, pretty clean picture, clean audio, a lot. So I respect the media content.
Yeah, it's been difficult. So we lost our media guy about 2 to 3 weeks ago. And so content has definitely dried up. We've released 9 products since he left, and which all in good terms. But he just wasn't able to do 3 jobs at the same time, kind of thing. And it's one of those things of like, what do you do as a company when you can't provide as much media as people were used to? Because we're probably pumping a video a week plus pretty much a photo or something every day. It kind of helped us, come out swinging out of the gate as a small company. And it definitely helps in terms of image of looking bigger than you are, which we're always honest, like we're still a small company. We're not considered huge at all, but it helps in terms of getting information out there. We try to make sure all the information for our products is available ahead of time. That way you can make a wise decision on your purchase, because we don't want people buying stuff that they are like, oh man, that can't work with my kit kind of thing.
Sure. Coming up with media nonstop is definitely a challenge. I understand that, especially after a few years when you're like, damn, what do I take pictures and videos of now? Like you feel like you've just exhausted everything.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is I used to be into cinematography and photography back in the day. That's what both my brother and I did for years. But now I'm the guy in front of the camera. So sure. It kind of absolutely destroys it when you're like, you have either zero control or can't be the person behind it doing all the photos and stuff. So it does make it a little difficult in terms of being able to continually do that stuff, especially obviously when you have to rely on somebody else to do those things. But I am only human, and I can't, I don't have 120 hours in a day to get everything done.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you coming on. I'm glad we were able to highlight, what you guys are doing, and hopefully, continue to support you guys as you guys come up. For everybody listening, I'll have their website and their Instagram and everything tagged in the bio down below. So please head over to their Instagram, give them a follow. Obviously, all of the support helps with the constant fight against the algorithm, given the basis of, what companies like ours does. But do you have any parting words of wisdom for everybody?
Wisdom. Man, I'm just going to go with something very basic. You can't do everything on your own. Being a father and a husband, I rely on people so much. And that's not just saying relying on my wife. I rely on men that are far wiser than I am and far humbler than I am. And I also think that all those men that I come in contact that are far better at what they do than what I can currently do, they all read the Bible far more than me, and they're far more diligent in that. And I think that's where it comes from. So I would say read the Bible, gain wisdom, love God, and keep going.
Beautifully said. Jeremiah, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right, guys, that's all I've got for episode 35 with Teardown Systems. As always, train hard, train often.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down.